This last week, I rewatched the movie Gandhi. I'm guessing probably many or most of you have seen it. If not, it's a really wonderful movie, and it's highly idealized about the life of Gandhi. But I think it's a good movie, and it does hit a lot of the main points along the trajectory of his life and his teachings, and working towards gaining India's independence from the British Empire. And towards the end of the movie, a reporter asks Gandhi, something about fighting battles and violence, and he says that the only battle worth fighting is the one that's within our own hearts and minds. And then the reporter asks him how he's been doing with that, and he comments that not well, which is, and because of his own, dealing with just his own heart and mind and seeing how that's going, that's why has so much tolerance for other people's weaknesses and failings, to see how it is for himself. And I was reflecting on that a lot because when I look into my own life, and I'm guessing this is true maybe for many, probably all, maybe all of us here this evening. Those of you I know, some of you I don't know well, but most of you I know, are some of the most sincere, good-hearted people I've ever met, and I count myself among that. I'd say, super sincere person, and I strive to live according to, I guess you could say, Dharma principles and I talk a lot. I've shared many times about wanting to live in a way with, deepening of the living in love and the opening of my heart and non-clinging and all these qualities. And it's not that I don't have some experience. I've been doing this a pretty long time, about 50 years, and I've put a lot into it, as many of you have. And even though I feel that I've gotten a lot of results and a lot of tremendous fruit and benefit and it feels good about that, I still live with all the times when just recently someone was asked, I can't remember how this came up, but something about somebody said, Richard, you really seem like a pretty good guy. And I responded, well, I am a good guy, except when I'm not. And like I'm a real loving person, except for all the times when I'm not. And I know what it's like to live in the stream of non-clinging, except during the times when I'm not. And it was trying to be a little humorous, but it really is pointing to that maybe there is an end point to this path, but as far as I can see, it just gets subtler and subtler, and it's not even about the end point. It's about being engaged in the process. That's what's important. And bumping up against meeting ourselves in relationship to life, to whatever's going on. And we get to see all the places where we really have, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but attained some fruits and some good benefits from all of the inclining our minds in these good directions. And we say, in spite of all that, I have all the times where I'm, subject to irritability or ill will, or it's not that I never ever get reactive. It's gotten a lot better over the years. I mean, way better for sure. And I know that's true for many of you who I know and have spoken with also. But one of the things that happens is that our minds become attuned ever more subtly. And so we are aware of and can feel more and more the levels where there's still it's work to be done maybe about that. And so it's really more, in my mind, not about where are we as there's this goal and measuring up against some perfection, but about just the willingness and the wish to just stay engaged and stay as attuned with our good intentions the best we can. And that's to me what really it's all about. Um, Sometimes Dharma is held up as being, oftentimes, it's like it's supposed to be like the highest teaching, the deepest spiritual truths. You'll hear people speak like this. But I hope I'm not trying to be controversial here, but I don't know if some of you may take me to task about this when we open it up for discussion, but I don't know that we can say that about Dharma. Really, in my mind, all Dharma is doing is pointing out certain aspects or characteristics about how life seems to work and inviting us, asking us to pay attention to those aspects, um, so we can make more conscious choices in the way we want to aim our lives, what we want our lives to be about. And so there's many stories in the old texts where the Buddha asks some simple questions, right? There's stories where he asks people, you know, just some of what we consider basics of, well, is life? I'm paraphrasing these, but is any experience you have, is it going to last? Is it permanent or not? And it's in these good teaching stories. People say, well, of course, it's not going to last. Things are impermanent. Can you just control everything to your liking, to your whim, whenever you want? Well, no, you can't always control everything. Um, is it to your benefit if you are caught in the forces of, we say, greed, hatred, and delusion? That's euphemisms for, right, being buffeted around by chasing after clinging to pleasant, and basic Dharma teachings we talk about all the time are pushing away, getting away from unpleasant. Is that to your benefit if those are the forces? And people, say, well, no, of course not. Is it to your benefit? You can free yourself from that so you can live in a way that's not kind of just only at the effect of those. So these are the really very simple things that the Dharma is inviting us. I view it as an invitation to just reflect on, because a lot of people don't reflect this way. And we have to be very humble, I think, and not be arrogant, because even sometimes people reflect in this way and they may not choose, they may choose a path that, we wouldn't call it necessarily a Dharma path, right? I'm the oldest of three brothers, and my youngest brother, he's, how would I say it? He's a good guy, but you would say he doesn't have a spiritual bone in his body, just as a way of speaking. I don't think that's actually possible. In my mind, when we speak about living a life of materialism versus what you would call a spiritual life, I understand it's a way of speaking. It's really, you can't separate out like that. I don't think it's accurate, but he thinks all this Dharma stuff is a bunch of we've talked about, he understands what the teachings are, and he just wants to live his life and have his family and have his job and do the things he likes, and he knows it's not going to last forever, and all the things that we reflect on. But how it informs, or maybe he doesn't want to reflect on it, maybe it doesn't really inform his life, is in his own way. And so I feel like once we've reflected on these teachings and more teaching, there's the teachings of karma that's in there too. And of course, if you really want to understand Buddhist teachings, whether you believe these things or not, you have to understand at least the teachings on rebirth and multiple lifetimes and samsara, and all of these teachings have to come in to inform the picture that's being presented. And of course, there are people, the Buddha being one of them, who claim to be able to and say that all of us, if we were to practice appropriately and do enough practice, could experience these things for ourselves. But for many of us, those may be either articles of faith, or we don't believe them to be true, multiple lives and rebirths, which is also, if you don't have direct experience, is also just a belief also, right? It's kind of equal to people who believe it's true or believe it's not true. It's like, pick your belief. But there's all these pieces to reflect on, and it paints a certain picture of this human condition we find ourselves in. And, then we are being asked, well, what's it all about? Where's it going to end? Where are the choices we're making leading us? But again, I think it's real important for Dharma people to be humble and not necessarily think that one path is a better path for another. That's not what Dharma is teaching. What Dharma is teaching is that certain paths, certain ways of acting and being lead to certain results. And Dharma is making some pretty strong statements about that. And again, it's asking us to take a look for ourselves to see if these are true or not, at least to the extent that we can experience it. But then it's up to us then to, and the Buddha is often quoted as saying to people, so now it's time for you, I've given you my teaching, and now it's time for you to go forth and do as you see fit. And how we come to know when we do hopefully we're making some conscious choices. It's a whole different thing when we don't have awareness about what we're doing, and that's a whole nother level of just being caught kind of in the stream of life and not even knowing what's happening. And so there's that level. But then even as we become more aware and we reflect on the transitory nature of life, and especially for many people, as if they haven't done it when they're younger, as they get older and they look back on life, and you see as the body ages, and even if you eat your organic green leafy vegetables, the body heads in one way. Actually, someone, I won't say who, but someone here sent a private chat to me, who's with us this evening, saying this person said they were recovering from their third hip replacement. And I sent a little, trying to be humorous, but it's just like, you've only got two hips. How many replacements can you get? But it can be like this, right? So here, right? So, and on it goes. So, but the choices we make are our own, and I think it is very humbling when we realize that it's not clear to me how we even do, there's this whole thing of, do you have free will or not? And I don't know that it's a useful, we're not going to answer that question. I don't even know if it's it could be kind of a fun philosophical discussion and to kick around the ideas, I guess, for fun. I don't know if talking about it's really going to do us any good, but it's an interesting thing. I was thinking, because how is it that since I was young as I can remember, I started meditating when I was 18, and no, 17, excuse me, I was 17. And I was into, yoga and meditation. I was more in the Hindu yoga world, but moved in a few years into the Buddhist world. And I was just drawn to that stuff when I was younger. And then here's my brother. He's drawn a whole different way. But in many ways, I mean, I won't get into politics tonight, except to say, we're polar opposites politically too. And he's a nice guy, but I'm just saying, like, why is his mind, when he just looks through his eyes and his senses and experiences the world, and it comes through a certain filter, was he free to choose that? Could he take on my view of the world in his heart of hearts? I don't know. I mean, he might be changed but that would still be part of his own mental process, bringing everything he has to bear, that could change. He can't make it happen any more than I could go and be him. So when we make these choices, it's kind of mysterious, but also I guess what I want to say is I'm reflecting. I do know that to the extent that I've been able to realize for myself, and I'm not claiming to have realized everything there is to realize, but as far as I've been able to take things, all the Dharma teachings seem to be true about how things work, just the way cause and effect and the way life works. I'm not saying everything about Buddhism seems to be true. As with many religions, there's a lot of pieces that have been, whole religion got created, right? We deified the Buddha and have him flying through the air and doing all this kind of stuff. But like any religion has done, but Dharma teachings seem to line up. And I feel a lot of gratitude for having been exposed to those things, and just fortunate that I feel like my life is better than it would have been. Well, let me put it this way. The more I've been able to actualize Dharma teachings in my life, the less I've suffered. And as I've gotten older, even though I always, get a few comments in a Dharma talk, or like to joke about, my body's actually doing reasonably well, but as it's definitely moving, in a certain direction of not like it used to be. But my body's not working as well by any means, but I'm happier than I've ever been as the Dharma teachings come more and more alive. And so when I reflect like that, it brings up a lot of appreciation and gratitude. And many of you know the stories. This is a Buddhist teaching story. I don't know if the Buddha ever really said what I'm about to say, but it's making a point that I think could bring up gratitude. And they talk about over the course of innumerable lifetimes. Again, we're making an assumption of that's even the way the universe works. That we're talking about what they call eons, and that's a long time. And the way they think of an eon is, there's a few different examples that are out there. I'll give several in the old text. The one that pops into mind is that there's a blind sea turtle who lives under the ocean somewhere randomly on the earth and comes up for breath once every 100 years. And somewhere else randomly floating on some ocean in the earth is a life preserver ring, something that's maybe just 2 or 3 feet across with, a ring with the opening in the middle. And statistically, given a long enough time, it will happen. It's probably, you need longer than the age of the universe since the Big Bang for this to happen. But statistically, the sea turtle's head at some point, just randomly, the sea turtle's moving around, the ring is floating, the sea turtle's head's going to come right up through the center of the ring. And it's said that that's how rare that would be, is how rare it is in this cosmological model to attain what's called a rare human birth. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. There's a little more nuance to the story, but that makes the point. I have no idea if that's how the universe works or not, but I like to reflect on that because it brings up a lot of appreciation and gratitude. And I want to just end on a few notes about appreciation and gratitude, because I don't know that appreciation and gratitude, they're not exactly the same, but I kind of tend to use them interchangeably. I don't know if that's always the appropriate thought or attitude to bring in. There may be when certain things are happening, it may be unrealistic or not useful or even counterproductive to think in those terms, maybe. But I do think for all of us to have that as at least part of the mix to call upon can be very, very helpful. And I was thinking about it because last week I was gone for about a week and a half. I was up in Oregon, near the area of Bend, Oregon, if any of you know that area. It's quite beautiful up there. This Smith Rock State Park, where a lot of rock climbers go. There's a lot of, anyway, rivers, forest, hiking mountains. In the winter, there's skiing. It's just a gorgeous area. And so I was spending time up there and then came back home just in time for, and I was talking with my family. I said, well, this is something, isn't it? Um, we're in the middle of more wildfires. You can't open the windows, it's so smoky. And isn't this great? It's also 103 degrees, so you can't. So when you need to open a window, you can't, right? Um, and the Republican National Convention's getting ready to come, and we're going to have to put up with that. And we're just going on and on about complaining about are we in hell? Is this hell? And we were kind of laughing, but actually, we were pretty. I was feeling a lot of stress, and even in that, it wasn't pretending that the stress wasn't there, the difficulties weren't there. But I really was reflecting on. I didn't know if I could. I couldn't affect the heat wave, and I couldn't make the air be less smoky. I didn't know what to do about that. And all the politics I could just not. I had the luxury to not have to deal with that. But it was pretty unpleasant. And I guess I was reflecting, well, how am I going? This is a perfect opportunity right now. Is there anything to do? Am I just going to get beaten down by this? Or is there some way to work with it? And I didn't know the answer, but I found that just by asking myself the question, it changed a lot right there. It was already like posing like, well, there could be, even when it's, triple digit temperatures and I can't open the window and the smoke, and my wife's panicking because of that we don't have a go bag ready to go in case the fire comes. And, so she's edgy. My kid's freaking out, everything. There was I couldn't find comfort anywhere. Um, was there a place to like liberate the mind a little bit, at least there? And what I found is that, first of all, just by asking the question, it made a big shift, but also, um, it was kind of an odd thing that this thing of gratitude and appreciation uh, came in. And it wasn't the fake gratitude and appreciation. It reminds me when I was 18 years old and I was living in a yoga ashram. And one person in there, his appendix burst and we were rushing him to the hospital. He ended up being fine, but it was super painful. And in that tradition, it was different than Buddhism. They use different language, but you use the language of God. And I won't get into all the thing. It's actually not that different than a lot of Buddhist Dharma, but it has some differences. So he was in the back of the car, and as we were driving to the hospital, he's just kept chanting, "Thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God." I didn't really process it with the guy, but I wasn't buying it. To me, when I heard that, maybe I was just projecting how I would be in there. It was really like uh, trying to use gratitude or appreciation. Maybe he was, I don't know, I might be being too hard on him, but he was in excruciating pain. I wasn't maybe I'm being a little too cynical, but in my view, this last week when the appreciation came up, it wasn't like the gift of the experience. I didn't see the experience as a gift. But what I was appreciative of is all the Dharma practice that had built up and not waiting to the last minute. So I actually had some tools to steady my mind in the middle of it. And that I had been exposed to Dharma teachings, and that I had even had the circumstances in life to even want to try to apply them, and then actually life gave me support supportive conditions where I could apply them, and I could bring a lot of appreciation. And it went back to appreciation for my own good intentions, not egotistical or even thinking how great I'm handling it. I don't know that I handled everything this last week that well, but I knew I could have some appreciation for what the Dharma is teaching us. And it just goes back to those simple invitations I was talking about, reflections at the beginning a few minutes ago, of just like, you know, life's going to go in its own way due to its own causes and conditions. Um, can I develop, and given what's going to happen, that life's impermanent, it's not within our control, can I develop some inner resources so that when things are difficult, I at least have a chance to maybe move through it a little better instead of being only at the effect. And that's what I'm getting to about gratitude and appreciation. You may have other ways you take gratitude and appreciation, but of how it, I don't know, just, and bringing back the part of the sincerity, I think also. So those are just some thoughts, maybe a little all over the place, but that was up for me to share.